Change your heart, change your life, change the planet.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Van Orden. Today I'm coming to you from the West Ridge Trail, high above Bennington, Vermont, about 3,000 feet below me that way. And I'm thinking a lot about exercise and getting myself to do things that are challenging and how that relates to a lot of what we're hearing on the news right now, where we have political debates, Republicans versus Democrats, Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump versus the world, what's going on in Europe with the refugees coming out of the Middle East and Hungary building a fence and all the issues that are cropping up there. And I'm thinking about all of this and how in nature everything moves, well, not everything, but almost everything moves towards a state of equilibrium, otherwise known as entropy, or an equal distribution. Water loves to flow downhill. That's what it does. It follows the path of least resistance, flows downhill, and regardless of the mountain that it started on, it will eventually come down to the lowest point that it can reach, either trapped in a pond or a lake somewhere, or hopefully it gets to the ocean where it is now flat and you can't go any lower than sea level. This is what the human mind does as well. The human body, on the other hand, is different. Life is a strange thing. Life moves away from equilibrium. Life moves away from entropy to the opposite state known as ectropy. Life flows uphill, and we don't know why yet. It's a fascinating thing about life, why it moves away from a state of equilibrium. But the mind uses the laws of physics and it flows downhill. It follows the path of least resistance for the most part. That's its default setting. You can change that and you can learn to have the mind flow uphill, but there's a lot of energy that is consumed when you do so. And the reason that I bring this up is that it relates to running up a mountain or getting into any type of exercise or dealing with refugees that are of a different religious background that are now flooding your country, or dealing with politicians that have different political ideologies or dogmas. It's all related. The human brain is an organ of efficiency and optimization. It wants to use as little energy as possible. And when you're a child, it has to use a lot more energy than it does when you're an adult. When you're a child, you've got massive amounts of neurons. You've got this huge, big expansion or inflation of neural growth. And then as the child experiences the world and experiences language and experiences human interaction and the objects that it's going to be greeted with or interact with on a regular basis, those neuronal networks start getting pruned and we have less and less and less brain, less gray matter. It gets whittled away. And we end up with these very optimized networks. If you, for instance, play the piano when you're first starting out, it requires a great deal of energy, cognitive attention and focus and energy. And as you know, it's exhausting to focus your attention on something. Like a math test. When you're sitting there trying to do a really hard math test, it's exhausting because your brain is going through resources very, very quickly. So it wants to avoid that. Like playing an instrument. Again, when you first start doing it, it's very hard, it's very frustrating because the brain is saying, we're using way too much energy here, that's dangerous, we could run out. So I'm going to create the physical experience of anxiety or frustration to get you to move towards a more optimized experience. I'm going to get you to move towards the path of least resistance so you use less energy, you conserve your energy, and you're less likely to run out and go into a state of cognitive depletion, ego depletion, or physical depletion. And as far as the brain is concerned, we don't have unlimited food supplies. We don't have convenience stores or grocery stores that are open 24/7. Our brain has barely changed at all in the past 50,000 years. So the world that it thinks is out there is one of scarcity. So it's trying to conserve energy. So it creates these neural networks that are optimized to flow downhill with little resistance. There was a study done on Garry Kasparov when he played the chess champion. when he played Big Blue or Deep Blue, I forget what it was called, the computer. And they measured his energy usage during the game, and they estimated he used 20 watts of energy to play this chess game. And his temperature was normal body temperature. Whereas the computer used thousands of watts of energy, and it had this massive bank of fans to cool it off as it played. So even though the computer eventually won, the energy required for it to do so was enormous. Complete different orders of magnitude more than the human brain, which was using a 20-watt, very efficient, deeply ingrained neural pathway. Garry's brain was flowing downhill. So back to religious refugees and political ideology, or getting yourself to run up a mountain. Whenever the brain is confronted with something that is not easy, whenever the brain is confronted with something that is not optimized, otherwise known as a belief system, belief systems are highly optimized neural networks operating at a very low energy level, maybe 20 watts or less. So if you're going along thinking that you know how the world works, thinking you know which religion is better or which political ideology is better, you're operating in that path of least resistance. Your brain is conserving energy. It knows what it knows, and that's it. But the moment somebody different comes along with a different belief system, a different ideology, or the moment a belief about yourself that you have to now change, you have to become more fit, you have to become a better wage earner, whatever it might be, you've got to change somehow. Whenever you're confronted with something that is outside of those optimized neural networks, the brain freaks out because it doesn't want to expend the energy, just like a hard math test. The brain is saying, no, I don't want to consider these other beliefs. I don't want to consider your point of view. I don't want to consider your plight or your feelings or what you just escaped from. I don't care. That requires too much energy. And it's not that it's a conscious choice to be dismissive. It's not a conscious choice to be superior. It's simply the brain trying to protect you, saying, okay, if we do consider those things, that's going to require way too much cognitive energy. We're going to be exhausted. We don't know when our next meal is coming. So the brain creates a physical sensation of discomfort or anger, something, some form of emotion that's going to get you to pull away from the conversation, pull away from the person, and end up with a continued flow downhill, which is, I'm right and they're wrong. I'm better, they're inferior. And this is simply what the brain is doing. So when you see people making these really bold, harsh statements that seem incredibly insensitive, it's not that they're evil people. It's that their brain sees how much energy is going to be required to have a different point of view, and the brain doesn't like that. It freaks out and says, no, we've got to conserve energy. That's way too demanding. So how that relates to me being on top of a mountain right now, if I tell myself that I have to run up a mountain, whoa, the brain freaks out. Way too much energy. Can't do it. And it's going to create all kinds of excuses in me. It's going to create an emotional experience and even a cognitive experience that tells me to find reasons not to do it, why it's better to do something else. So what I have to do instead is find ways to trick my brain to see just the step in front of me, to see the conversation 5 words in front of me, so that it doesn't see this massive uphill battle. Take one step, relax. Take a step, relax. Take a step, relax. In conversation, in consideration of others and their points of view, in consideration of what you have to move towards, whether it's dietary, whether it's exercise related, whether any kind of change. Changing your point of view, changing the way that you listen to someone, changing the way that you see someone and judge someone. Slowly approach it. Don't approach the whole thing all at once. The brain likes to do that. It likes to create these archetypes. Running up a mountain, that's an archetype. Holy cow, can't do it, too big. Or it'll create a religious group and say, boom, here's this religious group. It's this archetype and it's this giant thing. And you lose the detail. You create this fuzzy, amorphous blob that's not realistic. And then you can't approach it, can't consider it, can't conceive of it, because it's this mass of fuzzy details that just seems so gigantic that the brain's like, please avoid that. We need to conserve energy. We need to flow downhill. We've got 20 watts. That's all I'm going to give you is 20 watts. Not going to give you any more energy than that. So as you go through life and you consider the challenges that are in front of you and you consider the challenges in the world around you, realize that your brain is doing a really good job of working inside of optimized channels that use very little energy. They're following the path of least resistance. And we have to work really hard consciously to overcome that adaptation in the brain, because we have abundant resources. At least where I live in North America, I'm lucky. I have abundant resources that I can take advantage of. So I've got to make sure that the primitive wiring in my brain doesn't dominate my thinking and my behavior, because it's no longer justified. And when you see people attacking each other's ideologies simply because the brain is trying to optimize energy usage, and you live in an area where you have abundant resources, it's no longer justified. And I believe that you and I, living in North America, we have a responsibility to see the picture in a different way, to break it down into small steps, to show the brain how little energy can be used in each one of those small steps, so that it doesn't cause us to create these black and white archetypes that we then fight against. All right, that's my thought from the top of the mountain on the West Ridge Trail today. I hope there's some value in there for you. I'm having a lot of humbling thoughts as I'm out here running today. I love you guys. So yesterday, Sunday, I did a 5K race on legs that were totally destroyed. And that's my plan. I do that on purpose. And this is something that I did throughout my racing career. I'd beat myself up physically, push myself to the limit and beyond, and then enter a race with legs that are sore and tired and sluggish and feel like lead weights.